Okay, what's up, YouTubers? How you guys doing? Everybody, I'm trying to get y'all a second to get in. This is gonna be a great live feed. I know some people is gonna come in just to watch. You know, the family, all you guys are here. You guys are watching to make sure everything goes on. And then, you know, we're gonna have the degenerates come in, you know what I'm saying, so they can take a bone, like, you know, they like dogs. You know, they come in and take a bone and leave, you know what I'm saying? And over here, I'm that guy that if I throw a brick through your motherfucking window, I'm gonna stand there and dust my motherfucking hands off. I'm not gonna throw a brick and hide my hands behind my back. I'm not gonna do that. But other people do that. So what's good, my brother RJ Bun? You are on the phone with me. How's it going, brother?
What's up, bro?
Hey, I'm great, family. You know, RJ, I want to thank you, brother, for just taking time out to come in and, you know, talk with me and, you know, and talking with me in the past and, you know, us, you know, giving us some good, you know, the good stuff you gave us in the past, some material to use. You know, I appreciate you for that 100%.
Well, thanks, man. I've enjoyed, you know, since the first time we did the 313 show, you know, it's been, you know, nothing but good expressions of support and, you know, and really sticking with the real message, which is, you know, get the truth out here. Let's not conjecture. Let's not put out stuff that we have absolutely no basis for on fact. Let's stick with what we know, what we can prove that's factual. And, you know, that's what I call support and real. And, you know, that's what's really important to us is, you know, I've been doing this 10 years now, starting with the first assassination movie, almost 11 years I've been working on this investigation. And, you know, I've seen over 10 years, I've seen just a ridiculous amount of, you know, crackpot theories and, you know, people, Oprah did it, you know, people coming up with all kinds of crazy stuff. And, you know, and that's why it's so important that when you put something out, that you make sure that you have something. And if you don't have something, then don't say anything. You know, we made a whole point on the assassination movies. You know, somebody was dumb enough to make a claim on a video that we said in Tupac Assassination 1, Conspiracy of Revenge, that we said that Suge Knight did it and that we blamed Suge Knight. And the truth of the matter was, I released an entire transcript for that movie, every single word in that movie, and nowhere in the movie did we ever say that Suge Knight did it. We even said at the end of the movie that Reggie was doing some shit with or without Suge Knight's knowledge. So, you know, we were on the fence about that, and the 313 show and Rel and all my fans out in Detroit, you know, people that, you know, I think people from the Midwest have a good concept of what the real is anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, we want to do what we can to support that. And, you know, so that's my long way of saying thank you.
Hey, brother, I appreciate you. Now, I got to get straight to the shit. I got to go straight into it. Now, when I say this, we not taking those shots at no guy, this in particular guilty party. We both agreed that, you know, we were done with this guy. We were not going to we're not here to drag him through the mud. We got respect for him. We just not going to fuck with him. Now, we have some videos floating around of this individual. He's trying to discredit yourself and me, trying to discredit you and myself. He's trying to distance himself from you by saying he never got any work from you. He never worked with you, never asked you for no story. Everything he did on his own. He went to the DOJ. He went to Washington. He went out and beat the beat and got all his information on his own. Would you like to talk about that, brother?
Well, I'll say a couple of things about it, you know, because, you know, we said a lot about it on the Sunday show. We talked a lot about, you know, mentioning people's names. I'm not afraid to call anybody out. Let's get this straight. I've been calling out Reggie Wright's name for 10 years. And everybody sees what's happened with Reggie Wright recently and knows the kind of person that Reggie Wright is, and that those true colors are starting to come out now publicly.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been calling him out for 10 years. So if some Johnny-come-lately internet wannabe broadcaster who's, woke up and had an opinion about something, if they wanna, take shots at me, or they wanna go, 5 rounds with me on something, somebody categorizes it as war. No, they ain't no war. A difference of opinion is a difference of opinion, but own up to what you do and don't take things from other people and try to make them your own and then try to distance yourself from them. I mean, in one particular case, there's a whole lot of Facebook chat back and forth, which I'd be happy to, just like I did with the transcript of the movie, I'd be happy to release those Facebook transcripts, those chat transcripts where I sent Kevin Hackey's statement to the Los Angeles Police Department. These are documents that no one else has possession of. Michael and I are probably the only ones that do, besides, Russ Poole, God rest in peace.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you're going to be helping people like I always do with people, don't turn around and bite the hand that feeds you, number one. And number two, don't try to act like you figured this all out on your own. Because like I said, I've been at this 10 years. Greg Kading came to my movie screening, not the other way around, okay?
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago. He showed up at my movie screening. So you think that I'm just going to hand over a bunch of respect to somebody who woke up 6 months ago and decided to have an opinion about something because he watched Tupac assassination Battle for Compton? And in the beginning, a lot of people were supportive and some people, they were originally supportive, but, they took all those videos down that they showed support for the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and, now it's all about them.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that very amusing and very interesting, but, anybody who knows me knows that I don't come back with snappy talk and a bunch of bullshit and a bunch of lies. I come back with documents. I come back with documented fact.
Mm-hmm.
And every single time when that happens, people don't, it shows for what it really is. So, all I can say is, y'all just keep on saying what you're saying about Rel. You keep on saying what you're saying about R.J. Bond and saying you don't know R.J. Bond and, you don't want to mention my name and you want to say these things. Ain't nobody trying to start a war, but, because I don't want one, certainly. I mean, I've got bigger fish to fry than worry about somebody who just woke up yesterday with an opinion.
That's true.
Okay? And that's all those videos are, is a bunch of opinions. They talk about running around, they're going to go to D.C., and they're going to go to new places. Let me tell you something about this guy that went to D.C. I have it on the Facebook Messenger directly from him that the first thing they asked him about was R.J. Bond.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? They didn't know this guy from Adam. They didn't know who this guy was from anybody, and probably still don't. But the one thing he even admitted to me was the first thing they asked was, do you know R.J. Bond? Are you affiliated with R.J. Bond and Tupac assassination movie? He kind of indirectly referred to that, saying DVD theories on his video. But the bottom line here is that, this train wouldn't be rolling at all. Okay, if 10 years ago we hadn't started this train rolling, man. This guy that just woke up and had an opinion yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
Geez, where was he 10 years ago when we were fighting this shit out? Okay, straight up.
Right.
Suge Knight was walking around at the Magic Show in Las Vegas, and Frank Alexander was fixing to kill him. Where was this dude? Who knows? Who knows where he was or what he was doing? But, like I said, you got to be in this game a long time. Don't tell me about Johnny-come-lately, what he thinks he's doing to change everything. I hope he does. I hope he changes something. I hope he makes a difference, just like you and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope that. Anything that moves this case forward. But it's not going to move forward if we're busy tripping over our own dicks while we're walking around saying a bunch of shit that the same gun was used to kill Tupac and Biggie, and you walk around and you're making allegations that Frank Alexander was having an affair on his wife and Greg Kading's sister. And you make these wild and crazy allegations which have absolutely no basis in fact, and run around, like I keep saying to, Greg Kading, I said, fuck the talk, show the docs. Let's not talk about it. Let's show the docs. And so that's why I save all my Facebook messages and all my Facebook messengers, not just with that person's name, but with the actual serial number of the account number of the person that I'm talking to, so that I can go back and use that, because this ain't my first rodeo, bro.
No.
I mean, you know, people have threatened to sue me. People have threatened. They threatened all kinds of stuff. And if I'm not going to back up everything I say, and I'm not going to make copies of everything I say and do, then, you know, I'd be pretty weak coming into some cases. You know, this is the kind of business we live in.
Right.
And it's people that show up with an alias, an internet alias, that run around on the internet telling everybody that they're afraid about giving out their address.
Right.
Okay? All right.
Now this is let me say this, RJ, because this is what I always say, and I stand by this shit, because I challenge all of them. I got the adult crowd over here, and I've always challenged my adult crowd to just go over there and read the posts, the comments from his subscribers, and you can tell that these are kids. He got the 14 and up crowd, you know, 14 to 20 crowd. You know, the people whose minds are really not fully developed all the way, so you can tell them anything. And my famous line that I always ask one of his degenerates that come and try to challenge me is that I always ask him, if Tanique told you that he had his dick was full of diamonds and the only way to get him out was to suck the diamonds out of his dick, would you drop your dumb ass down on your knees and suck his dick? And none of them never reply back when I ask them that, because that's a powerful statement to say stop.
That's hard. That's hard. That's hard. I wouldn't personally say that myself, but I mean that's as real as it gets. Now, so check this. We have people running around right now, and I'm gonna just get out in front of something too, because dude hit me up asking me for money. And I told him that, you know, maybe when I got paid or something like that, maybe I give him a couple $100 because he needed some editing equipment. That, you know, he's been out promoting my movie, and you know, the reality is there's been people promoting the movie for a lot longer who haven't gotten paid. Right. That's just what they do, because they appreciate it and support it. But you know, this guy asked for it, and at the time, I mean, I encouraged him when he pulled the videos down. I encouraged him to put them back up again. You know, I said that I thought he was reaching an audience and all that, but you know, that was when our ships were sailing in the same direction. And unfortunately, you know, like I said, I don't want a war, and I don't have anything personal against the guy. I just think he's irresponsible. I think he's responsible with his facts. I think he's irresponsible. He spouts off a lot of conclusions and a lot of opinion and states them as if they're facts. And, you know, the audience doesn't know the difference. And we have a hard enough time with fighting the Reggie Wrights and the Greg Kadings and these people that, you know, want to promote narratives that aren't, you know, based on any kind of fact. And, you know, we have enough of that on our own without taking things we say and people taking them out of context and doing that. That's just a whole different kind of fight.
Yeah.
And, so we have trouble with that. Like I said, it is true. I did copyright strike one of Tanique reviews videos. I did do that. The reason that I did that was because he was using images that were shot at the screening of Tupac assassination, Conspiracy Revenge of Frank Alexander, whose likeness I have rights to use, and this person does not. And that's a likeness rights issue. And, you know, and even did the same thing, took a still from Tupac assassination Battle for Compton and used it as a thumbnail for another video. I mean, this is the same guy, by the way, who's running around talking about don't support the DVDs and do your own work and all that, you know, and not mention Battle for Compton by name, and not acknowledging my involvement as the guy who wrote it, cut it, and co-directed the movie. But he's going to feel free to use a still from my movie and a picture of Michael Moore, which is my copywritten material, and he's going to use that to promote his video with, and that's the first thing people see. See, they're not seeing him. They're seeing an image of mine that they're clicking on to go to his video. So, I mean, that kind of says it all right there about the character involved and this guy's character.
Right.
Okay?
Now, right.
The second thing, you know, so I did copyright strike.
Right. Now, I caught someone just asked, did I report one of his videos? No, what I did was I copyright struck him as well, because he took my image, my likeness, I am that guy Rel, and I am a registered LLC in the state of Michigan, and I'm signed to my own label. So that was he took my likeness, which is my picture, without my consent, and he was getting paid off his videos for it. So I copyright strict that. So all the money that he made off of that video, I thank you guys for clicking on that, because he's not going to see that money. It's going to go to my account. So thank you guys for watching that video, because I got paid for it from Taneek. Thank you guys.
Now, let me explain something else, though, about copyright strikes, so everybody actually understand what we're talking about here.
Yes, sir.
When you copyright strike a video, it's something that if you have copyright material that you have rights to, or license or anything like that, you have the ability to file a copyright strike with YouTube. Okay. Now, some people want to high on their interviews and talk about that I did this and it's going to get sorted out. Well, the only way it's going to get sorted out is that people start apologizing for behaviors that they've had and things that they've said, and calling people Judas to his Jesus, and making ignorant statements like that. Number one. Number two, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this 10 years. I filed, I mean, it's a guess, but I think I've had to file close to 200 copyright strikes on YouTube over the last 10 years on people using my material and doing things about that. It ain't personal. It's just, you want to be your own man, and you want to claim that you're getting the information and you're getting the documents. Fine, don't use my shit. Use your own. You go find, somebody want to claim they got documents of their own. Okay, well, go find a document that I don't have. Go claim your own documents. You plan on going to the DOJ? Fine. Bring your visitor's pass for when you go to the DOJ and put it up on your website, hold it up so that everybody can verify that that's really what you did. Okay? When I went to the LAPD, hold on a second here. When I went to the LAPD with Russ Poole, I didn't want anybody to make a claim that I didn't really go to the LAPD, so I had my picture taken with the deputy chief of police there. Okay? Because I don't want anybody making a claim like RJ said he went to the police department. They're never going to admit that I did. But how do you prove that you did? Well, I have the parking pass from when we went there, when we logged in to park at the LA Parker Center, and I have a picture with the chief of police, or the deputy chief of police.
Most definitely.
So all I'm saying is, use your own material. You want to get up there, you want to talk, and put your head up on and that's all that everybody sees for 20 minutes. I'm not going to speak to the entertainment value of that, but the information should be your information. You can spout your opinions all day, but when you start using material that belongs to other people, and even if there's a thumbnail for your video, you see that attracts people to your content based on work and efforts and material that I put together and that I compiled. That video, that picture of Michael Moore, that interview that you're using a still from, that's my content. So you want to keep doing that, be ready for another copyright strike. I mean, it's nothing personal. This is business.
That's right. And you're going to lose all that money. He's going to lose all that money.
Well, it's not even about the money. I mean, the thing about it is it's not even about the money.
Not at all.
It's about the respect. It's about the lack of respect that somebody makes all these claims. They're running around and gathering all this information, yet they're still using my shit.
Right. Now this is my thing with the guy, because a couple of my people was like, you got to watch this video. You got to watch this and hear what he said. You know what I'm saying? I asked that in 1 minute, Gino. You got to ask this, you got to ask that. So I watched the video, right? Now, I remember he so clearly out of his mouth said he broke this case. He said that he broke this story. He broke this. This is what he said in the first video. Then he said that the rights were being indicted for the murder of Tupac Shakur. Then he deleted that video and came back and said, well, no, this is what's going on. But he still said he broke the case. Then I watched some bullshit with him rambling on about stolen valor and some shit, where he say now he didn't break the case. He didn't solve the case. The police did it. you know, he's a big walking contradiction. You know, one minute he did.
Well, you know, you know, listen a bit. I don't want to just sit here and beat up on the guy.
Nuh-uh.
I mean, that's the one thing, you know, we don't want to do. I mean, you know, the bottom line, you know, when he said he broke the case, he got the information. Michael Carlin called him and gave him the information about the rights being arrested. Michael Carlin and I got the information from a source that we have on one of the networks that works with the networks. He gave us the drop on it. Michael has inside sources himself that he talks to that were telling him something was going to happen. So, you know, again, you know, a lot of people take credit for a lot of stuff, and I don't even care about that. What I care about, the whole problem with the copyright strike thing is just use your own shit. Don't use mine. If you're not going to give me attribution, you're not going to attribute the things and the work that I've done, and you're going to act like all this stuff is your own and all this information is your own. You say you broke the case. Why don't you be honest and say Michael Carlin called you and dropped the dime so that you could broadcast this out? I mean, there's no illusion. When Jesse or J-Mix puts out a video, and he and I have worked together, Ralph puts out a video, he worked together, he's like, RJ Bond and I have worked on this video together. Okay? There's no all about me. And that's the inherent problem that I got with this cat, is everything's got to be about him. Okay? And I appreciate the crowd that he reaches out to. I appreciate his reach. I appreciate the, you know, when he gets it right. You know, I wish he'd get it right more of the time. But again, like I said, you know, the big message here is just stop using my shit. Just stop using my movie, stills from my movie as thumbnails for your videos. You can put your own picture up there on the video, you know, but you just know that ain't going to get a lot of views. It's going to get a lot more views when you're using a picture of Michael Moore from my content, and then turn around and talk about that you talk to his fiance at great lengths and stuff like that. You know, trust me, you know, all I can say is that just that. Now, you know, so we talk about the copyright strike. Now, there's another allegation that's been made recently that, you know, that I'm out. The reason I put a copyright strike against him was so that I could get his address. And in fact, he even told somebody else, I think it was Jesse, that he told that he would, even though he thinks I owe him money and I agreed and offered to pay him money, he would accept my money because that would mean that he would have to give up his address, his home address or physical address, okay? Well, first off, you know what? I own my own home, and I have an address. And anybody who wants to do a property lookup and look me up by name, it takes maybe about 3 minutes to look up my address, okay? You know, I don't care. I use my real name. I don't go by some alias. Terry House is his real name. He goes by Tanique. Well, I don't know. Maybe that's what his nickname is. I don't know. But, you know, there's no fooling somebody when you use an alias. Michael Douglas Carlin is Michael Douglas Carlin. We get out in front of it, put our real name out there.
Right.
Okay? That's bottom line. It's easy to do a bunch of things. And you want to reference this, you can always reference whatever happened to Anton Beatty. Okay? Anton Beatty had an alias. He put it out there. He was tough, and, you know, he talked a lot of shit and then did a lot of stuff against us and, you know, under that name, Anton Beatty. And you know what? He and I actually talked, and we emailed back and forth now. But what it took me finding out who he really was. He was hiding behind that alias. And once we found out who he was, well, then we had a different kind of a conversation. Okay? And that's sometimes what it takes. Now, this cat's still running around talking about how, you know, I'm trying to find out his address. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't copyright strike anybody to find out their home address or thinking that I'm going to bait them and counter-strike them so that they can give up their address. Bottom line here is that when you use a cell phone and you're dumb enough that you want to hide your address, I'm not saying if you're dumb to use a cell phone, that's not the case. But if you're going to use a cell phone, there's a thing called a MAC address that goes with your cell phone, and that personally identifies your transmitting cell phone. And so when this cat want to go live, he is broadcasting to anybody who wants to listen what his MAC address is, and based on the tower that he's transmitting from, where his location is. If cops really wanted to know where this cat was, it would take them all of 10 seconds to find out where it is, where he's transmitting from. And I think it's kind of ironic that these people that are claiming that they're you know, they say bad things about the government, and they call people names, and they, you know, just kind of talk like that. And they're worried about somebody finding out their home address, but they're going to broadcast their MAC address out and make a permanent record of it. So
right.
that all I got to do is go down and get a subpoena and subpoena the cell phone company to find out where that tower was that transmitted that video, that live stream, or that transmit a message or a text message or something like that. You know, in this day and age, it is not hard to find somebody's address. So I really don't want to hear any more about how the reason for wanting to get somebody's address, or, you know, or copyright strike somebody's, so that they can get an address and you can send gangbangers out to kill people. Honestly, I mean, you know, that's just fear mongering right there. You know, paranoia. You know, and you know, Frank used to get all kinds of mad about this. Frank used to get all kinds of mad about this. You know, when people would say things that are contradictory. You know, I just want to put it out there like this. I got nothing personal against this dude.
Right.
Okay, I got nothing personal against this dude.
Not at all. I don't have nothing personal against him either. And it's just, you know, let me say this about this fella. I have his address. I have his address. I know where he at. I know his full name, his birthday. I know everything about him. And it took me less than, 5 minutes, not even that long, like 2 minutes, if even that long, to get all his information. And I put it up in the video and I gave it to him and said, look, I can touch you if I want to touch you. You're not in Jacksonville, Florida, so quit lying to the people. And you're not in California, so quit lying to the people. You back home in Chicago. You know what Downers Grove, Illinois, that's where he's at right now. That's where he lives. So one thing to another. So yeah. So
let me tell you something about that. And that's a whole new piece of information that is a little disconcerting to me because I'm glad I copyright struck his video because I'm going to tell you something. Frank Alexander's from Chicago.
Right.
Okay. Which means he's got family. He has like 6 brothers and sisters. Okay. And if any of you know what ABK is, okay, Frank was ABK 100%. His family are some of the leaders of the ABK in Chicago. Okay. And if they heard the shit he was talking about Frank Alexander saying he was having an affair on his wife, and his wife was having an affair with a cop across the street, and he was seeing great cases, if they had heard that, or I had made them aware that was being said, and that dude's in Chicago, I won't have to do anything more than just point them to the video. Okay? Because the recipe cooks itself at that point.
Yes.
So I'm kind of glad. I mean, I think I did this guy now. I know that. I think I did that dude a favor.
Yes, you did.
So, yet again.
Most definitely.
I did a favor. If he's in Chicago, I definitely did him a favor.
Yes, you did.
So,
now let me.
And I'm gonna tell you, he better never say anything more negative about Frank Alexander, especially if he's in Chicago. Okay, bottom line, and you know, take that for what it is.
Most definitely.
But, you know, I just know from my 20-year relationship with Frank Alexander, me and brothers, and I shot videos for his family and people that, you know, that were artists and things like that, and I was welcome in that part of Chicago. I was welcome, and I thought to myself, man, I would never want to be somebody that wasn't welcome.
Most definitely.
In that neighborhood.
Let's ask a question because we want to move on. Now we done addressed this lying fat motherfucker. We done got that out off the table. Now let's get back to the Tupac case. Now Frank, RJ. So first, let me ask this one question because this person has been asking some good questions. They told me to ask you: was Michael Douglas Carlin a part of the Black Panthers? Someone said he's claimed he's a part of the Black Panther movement. Is that true that you know of?
No, I think that the claim that was made was that Michael Moore, one of Frank Alexander's bodyguards, was a part of the Black Panthers. Okay? You know, and bottom line is I can't confirm or deny that he was. I've never heard that before from him. Frank Alexander and he were very good friends, and I've never heard that from Frank Alexander. I never heard it from his fiance, but of course we never really had much to discuss about that. Michael Douglas Carlin is definitely not a member of the Black Panthers.
Oh, okay. No. Somebody said I asked that question wrong. Okay, we're gonna strike that. Forget about that. Now let me ask.
The claim was made
Okay.
that Michael Moore was part of the Black Panthers. So,
Okay.
I can't confirm or deny that. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
Now let me ask this. This is a question. I don't want. If you don't want to answer it, RJ, you don't have to answer it. But one of the family members told me to ask you this: do you feel that Frank Alexander committed suicide, or do you feel that something was fishy with that?
Well, I can tell you that there are two people that were at Frank's house within hours of his death, where he allegedly committed the suicide, that were not like his wife or his, stepdaughter. Okay, there were only two people that knew Frank outside of his immediate family that were there at the house within hours of that happening. One was myself, and the other one was Kevin Hackey. All right. Now, I saw the location where it happened, and where it was alleged to have happened. And I've said this before on other shows, so this is nothing new. But maybe it's new to somebody who's asking who's never heard of it. What I saw there was not what I was expecting to see, but what they said happened. What I saw was a location that just looked like Frank wasn't there anymore. When you say that somebody shoots themselves in the head, there is all kinds of a mess that happens from that. And that kind of a mess is not something you get cleaned up in a few hours. Okay? And, you just don't take a bottle of Lysol out and just spray the place like somebody took a dump in the bathroom or something. There's when somebody dies or there's a gunshot, there's not only, there's a smell, there's spray off, there's cast off, and this was a place that where it was alleged to have happened was a place that Frank Alexander and I congregated hundreds of times over the years. Hundreds of times. It was his office. It was where we did contracts together with distributors. It's where we talked about the movies. It's where we would do storyboards. It was where I would sit and wait for him to come home from the grocery store. Here's a little story about Frank that's kind of funny. Frank had OCD real bad. Frank was one of these kind of guys when you have OCD. He didn't have like the condition, but he had traits like that. So, for example, he would always leave a pen in the exact same place. And if you moved that pen, he would know that you moved that pen because he knows exactly where he left it in the exact position of where he left it when he walked away. So what would happen was, Frank would know where he put all his pens and everything. And I learned this because I lived with Frank for a period of time. We were roommates. And so what I would do when I come over to the house, I could get there early or whatever. I'd come in and his wife would say he was at the grocery store or something like that. I would go over to his desk down in his office and I'd just fuck with his pens and move them around. Because I knew the minute that he got back, he'd get into a panic like, who moved my pens? And then he had to put them all back. He'd have to put them all back in the order that they were just to keep from losing his shit over the pens being moved around. So I would fuck with him constantly like that. That's what friends do, right? So anyway, but that's the thing about Frank. But see, when I went down to that office and I saw what that office looked like, where, like I said, I congregated with Frank 100 times. There's many times I sat down in that office by myself without Frank being in that room. And there's a certain feeling that you get when you're used to seeing somebody in a room, like at your house with your wife or your kids, and they're just not there. There's a difference, and you feel that difference, that they're just not there. They're not in that room. And when I went down to that room, like I said, within hours of the incident alleged to be happening, where he's alleged to have shot himself in the room, I did not see one single indication that Frank had shot himself. There was no blood on the ground, on the carpet. There was no cast-off spray on the wall. There was no cast-off spray on any of his books because he had books and knickknacks all over his office. And that's the thing. I mean, you might try to get the broad strokes and like try to clean the carpet, try to clean the wall, but at the end of the day, and then he fell over on his side, allegedly shot himself, fell over his side. There'd be blood coming out of his head all over the place.
Yes, it would.
And that kind of stuff, I mean, you got enough blood in your body that when that blood comes out of your head, you're going to drain a lot of blood. It's going to make a big mess.
Yeah.
And I saw absolutely no sign of it anywhere in that room. There was no blood spray. And I mean, I braced myself for Silence of the Lambs shit. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I braced myself for a real, you know, ghastly scene.
Right.
I mean, you see the movies and shit all the time. You see when people shoot themselves in the head, you know, you got brain matter, you got all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, I know, because I worked at the Wayne County Medical Examiner's Office before, so that's what I was saying. There wouldn't only just be blood spatter, there'd be brain matter, and if it was a big enough, large enough caliber, you would see skull fragment laying around as well. So, wow, that's it.
Right. So, you know, so you got to realize that when I walked into that room, I was told that a cleanup crew would come in and clean it up. But in the hours following, no, not overnight, not in a few hours. That didn't happen.
No.
Because you have to get special forensic teams of people out there to do that kind of cleaning, okay? That ain't like you can just take a, whatever, take the cleaning product and, you know, wipe away and get rid of that. That just doesn't clean up like that. Blood usually doesn't, it absorbs something, smears more because it's so thick.
Right.
And so you really have to be good about how you clean up that scene. But when I walked into that room, bro, I'm gonna tell you straight up and tell your audience that he just wasn't in the room.
Wow.
It's just like I walked into the office, every single time I walked into the office when he wasn't there, he's at the store or something, and I think, oh, he'd be back. I walked through that room and it was just Frank wasn't there.
Wow.
And I said, this is where it happened. So, you know, when they said, do you think it was a suicide? I actually, on my personal opinion, I do not believe it's a suicide. I don't believe it's suicide. I believe that there are certain facts that are important to the case, and, you know, I don't know. I mean, you know, I heard it said in a video that Michael Carlin tried to get a copy of the police report from the Murrieta, California police department there, and that he wasn't able to. I don't know anything about that. I know I tried to get a copy of the incident report, and I tried to get it through a Freedom of Information Act, and then I went to the police station and I told them who I was, and I asked for a copy of it in person at the police station. They refused, and I went to their supervisor and they refused. And then I even subpoenaed it in a court case. I called a court subpoena and had a court order subpoena to get that information, and the city attorney for the city of Murrieta blocked it.
Whoa.
And said that they refused to give it because they said it was a police matter and that they weren't going to give it up. So they fought me all the way up to the city attorney's office, and basically, and their city attorney isn't a real, like, private, their city attorney is not like a public official city attorney like most cities have. They're a small city, so they actually have a private law firm that they hired to act as their city attorney.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I got the letter and everything from the city attorney, and so, you know, they can talk about FOIA requests all day long, and hey, why don't you send out a FOIA, but bottom line, FOIAs rarely work, and they rarely work against the police station, police department. So, you know, I don't believe that Frank Alexander killed himself because I knew Frank Alexander for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow.
And again, this is about this. You know, these Johnny Come Latelys. You know, like I said, the guy woke up yesterday with an opinion about the matter. Okay.
Right.
You want to talk about suddenly he's on the case now and he's the guy figuring out about Frank Alexander's death. Well, you know, that was my closest friend and a brother to me for 20 years. He's the godfather of my firstborn son. And if you want to start talking about him saying all this salacious stuff about him having an affair and doing things, you know, and all that, you know, I'm just telling you, that's where I draw the line. And of course it's going to be personal for me because there ain't nobody closer to working on that stuff. So I'm going to shut up and let you talk to me.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this, okay. With this new stuff that's going. First, let me say R.I.P. to Frank. You know, he's missed by everyone. A couple people in here even said R.I.P. to Frank. With this new situation that's going on with Reggie Wright Sr. and Jr. being indicted on drug cases, charges, and people are starting to look at your DVD, the feds is looking at it and law enforcement officers looking at it. Do you honestly think that there are going to be more arrests to come, possibly within the Tupac case?
I do. You know, I put out a video, I think it was yesterday, about it, and I do. And, you know, there was a bunch of videos, people come out and say, oh, it's got nothing to do with the Tupac case. These guys, there's a bunch of conspiracy. They're trying to tie it in. Look, when Suge Knight starts trying to talk to David Kenner about Reggie Wright getting arrested, and all that's all tied up at the same period of time where Suge Knight's complaining that he can't talk to David Kenner, and he fired David Kenner.
Mm-hmm.
And he can't talk to David Kenner within days after Reggie Wright being arrested and being released on bail. A very low bail, I might say, on top of things, $50,000.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, nobody thinks that's a little odd. Nobody thinks that's a little too coincidental that they're getting the old band back together again.
Mm-hmm.
For real?
You're right.
Oh. And so I do believe that this is going to be my personal belief, and again, this is my own opinion, my constitutionally protected opinion. I'm another guy who woke up having an opinion this morning. That this is going to be beat the clock. I think that the both of them they're joined at the hip.
Mm-hmm.
They are a threat to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's a matter of time to see who wants to be out of jail more.
Mm-hmm. That's
now,
true.
That doesn't necessarily mean that whoever gives us something is going to give us something about the Tupac case. Because let's remember, I believe Tupac was killed as collateral damage because they were trying to cover up something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that something bigger is part of what they just exposed with these indictments, if that part of that bigger drug money laundering and drug operation, if any of that information ties back to other people who may be doing something similar, I do know that there was another case that they're working on that's drugs coming out of California to Tennessee. They say it's unrelated to this case, but, you know, this could be another player. We don't know. And I see people, you know, wanting to strike up old relationships again and fan those fires and relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think that where there's smoke, there's fire.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, I do think that this is the first best chance that the old cases Biggie and Tupac have of getting some movement is when you have two of the key players in this whole drama on the same playing field, and both of them have something to lose.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
That's my opinion.
Right. Now, someone just told me to ask you, one of the family members told me to ask you, do you feel that Tupac is dead, or do you feel that Tupac may have faked his death? Do you really think he's dead?
Well, I'm just going to say, based on my conversation with Frank, based on my conversations with the other bodyguards that were around at the time, based on, you know, everything I know, talking to the family members. I mean, don't forget, I interviewed Gloria Cox. I went to her house. I went to the Shakur Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Our movie was shot at the Shakur Foundation. And Frank was good friends with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
If there was some time here, he was alive, you know, we would have talked some wind about it. I mean, his own relatives are saying that. And these are people that, I'm talking about not just on camera, but off camera. Mm-hmm. You know, no. Tupac's dead or Julius Caesar at this point.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, he's dead than Julius Caesar. Y'all people, you have your answer. Pac is dead. He's no longer here. Now, it's one thing that puzzled me, right? I did an interview with Danny Boy. And Danny Boy said that when Tupac died, one of the homeboys came to his hotel to get him. He went straight over to the hotel, to the hospital from the hotel, and Tupac's body was already gone. Within minutes, they had transported the body up out of there. Did Frank Alexander or Michael Moore, any one of those guys you know saw the deceased body of Tupac? Did they ever confirm that they saw the dead body? Because Danny Boy clearly stated that no, he didn't see the body when he got there. The body was already gone.
Frank and Kevin Hackey, I think, were both in contact with Rich McCauley at the time, and Rich McCauley was the one who took his ashes over, was responsible for taking his ashes over after he'd been cremated and taking them over to the funeral home. You know, they had that. Now, when Tupac actually physically died, Frank Alexander was at Suge Knight's house. So, you know, Suge was there, Reggie was there. You know, none of the regular players was there when he physically died. But, you know, as far as everybody knows, who he was told was the cremated body of Tupac's score was taken to the funeral home by Rich McCauley, and Rich McCauley was in contact with Frank Alexander and Kevin Hackey. There was a clear line of communication that there was no wink, nod, hey, play along with this kind of an attitude.
All right. Now that's one thing I wanted to know, because it was a cat by the name of Kurt Cobain, a producer, claimed that he was the one that brought Tupac ashes back from Vegas on a plane to California. Who actually transported Tupac's ashes? Do you know that? Or would it have been Frank, or would it have been Michael Moore, or anyone else that may have transported the ashes back?
Well, it would have been Frank or Michael Moore. They were both, you know, they had both done their duty, and Frank was on the road. Frank was leaving. You know, he got out of Vegas. You know, it wasn't Michael Moore, it wasn't Kenny Archer, it wasn't Leslie Golden. You know, I'd have to ask a couple people what they remember about it, but I know who transferred to the funeral home. I do not know who transported it from the funeral home to L.A. I don't know. I mean, it could have been Kurt Cobain. I have no reason to doubt him at this point, but you know, again, I can check with a couple places and see if anybody has any knowledge of that.
Most definitely, my brother. You know, so in your time frame, do we see within the next year, the next 2 years, because we're gonna see some movement and some shake up in Biggie and Pac's murder case since this big indictment has came out for these drugs?
Well, the drug indictments don't have anything to do with Biggie and Tupac. Everybody knows that.
We know that.
The indictments are federal indictments, and this is where it gets a little bit murky. And people aren't going to like the initial answer I'm going to give, but I'm going to explain it. The initial answer would be, at first, no, because a murder case, whether or not we think it's the most serious of all crimes, a murder case is still a state case. There's no such thing as a federal murder case. Murder cases are handled by the states, and that's the State Sovereignty Act, and that's how those are handled. But the feds have federal cases and federal laws, federal things that they deal with, and they can refer things to the state attorney for prosecution if it's a capital offense. But most of the time, the federal government deals with federal offenses. So in the drug casing, the first thing they're going to do, and this is why I put out a video that I encourage everybody to look at. We put it out a couple of days ago, where we had the the U.S. attorneys that worked on Operation Big Spender kind of talk a little bit about how these cases go. And at first, the feds are going to basically have a case that's going to be very easy to prove, very clear, you know, the evidence supports it. It's all there. I mean, freaking bank cameras, you know, of people, you know, known drug dealers depositing money into Reggie Wright's account, and then Reggie and his dad moseying into the bank to make a withdrawal, you know, and where these accounts came from and all that. And the bank cameras have all this. I mean, all the security footage of these known drug dealers walking in. They got video of them making the deposits in the bank. I mean, you can't get away from that stuff. So the feds are going to be, and this kind of goes to where some people make videos and say, you know, stolen valor, that we you know, no, we said that there was money laundering and drug dealing going on around Death Row Records, and the people involved, and we named names of the people involved. Did that get them arrested for this case? No, it did not. But nevertheless, we called out what it was years before they got arrested for it. All right, and we exposed what the problem was. They just got caught for it.
Right.
But the feds are not going to mix up the whole Tupac Biggie thing, and they're not going to get into a lot more about Reggie Wright. undue influence in Compton or anything else that they might try to dig up or that the fans really want them to dig up.
Right.
Because the first case that they have, Rel, it's got to be open and shut. They want an indictment. They want a conviction. They got this footage of them making these deposits. It's accurate. There's financial transactions to support it. They want to catch these guys red-handed. The minute you start introducing speculation or you start introducing history and you try to go for too much, they can confuse the jury. People can be like, well, you know, maybe that's true, maybe that's not. They're going to stick with what they got. And so the answer to that is immediately no. It's not going to benefit Tupac or Biggie at all. But I will say this, and this is what happened with Big Spender, that prosecutions tend to come in waves. So what they'll do is they want the open and shut conviction, because once they get the conviction, then it's about making a deal so that their jail sentence time isn't so great. Okay? And making a deal so that maybe instead of being there 20 years, you may only get 10. But you've got information about a case. And again, what it'll do, just like in Big Spender, the hope is that that information will then lead to a second wave of prosecutions and a third wave of prosecutions and a fourth and a fifth and however many it takes. Keep riding that wave to keep moving that along. Now, I believe that so the federal prosecutions will run on one track. Here on the other track, running alongside of it, there's going to be a lot of information that's going to be given up. And our hope is that a lot of this information is given up will be referred to the authorities that can make a case related to Biggie and Tupac. So that's the idea here of it. I don't think that, we were just talking about this, Jesse and I were just talking about this. Shout out to J-Mix.
That's right.
Jesse and I were talking about this just today, that we tend to doubt that this federal case will have any impact whatsoever on the Tupac or Biggie investigation immediately. But even if Reggie, tried to give up information to implicate Suge in the Biggie killing, the feds themselves are probably not interested in that because it's not a federal case. Now, that information may be valuable to the state of California, but since no one is being brought up on charges for that, again, it's just the guy saying it. It's not, he may himself not even have any proof. Maybe he can offer proof and then things get more serious.
Right.
But again, that's where it kind of has to jump tracks to get traction in the Tupac and Biggie case. Now, do I think it's going to jump tracks? Oh, yeah, I do. I think loose lips sink ships. And I think that when you've got several people that are key players in the same drama that happened 20 years ago, all being indicted for crimes that in aim was to showcase it is a state crime. Okay? So while the feds may not be interested in what Reggie has to say about a state capital crime, Suge, on the other hand, is being indicted by the state. So what he has to say about a state crime may be of interest.
Right.
Okay? So I do think that when you have the two key players in a big drama involved, that they both have something to lose now, I think the stakes go up pretty high.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be a very interesting time for all of us to watch and see how this unfolds.
Oh, yes, it is, man. Now, here's another thing I want. Somebody asked me to ask you, why is it that Reggie Wright Jr. is out on bail, but Reggie Wright Sr. is still locked up?
Well, the only bail I've seen, and I actually haven't checked today about it. I'll give you an update if I find something.
Okay.
But there's a couple of reasons that could be. Number one, his uncle was the one, Reggie's uncle, which was Senior's brother, Giles Wright, whichever way you want to pronounce his name. He's the one that put up what's called a surety bond against so that Reggie could get out.
Cash a surety, yeah.
Yeah, a surety bond. Now, a lot of times when I don't know if it was cash money or maybe a lien against his house. Sometimes you can put your house up against it. But the reality is that usually one person putting up bail can't put up bail for more than one person.
Right.
So I could go put up bail for person A, but maybe person B they gotta have that bail. So again, you know, it really depends on their financial situation and who they can have to post bail and for what. And that's, I think that to answer that question, that's the reason why Reggie Jr. is out. And the other thing too is that, you know, Reggie Jr. immediately went hooked up with Shook's old attorney, Robin Yates. So, you know, that's even interesting.
Wow.
So there's a lot to see, brother, and I'm going to have to jump here, but, you know, clearly more to come, that's for sure.
Okay, my brother RJ, I thank you for giving me the time you gave me, man. I love you and I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you on the phone a little bit later on tonight, my brother.
And like I said, you know, I appreciate you too, and like I said, you know, support the real. I mean, we kind of go away from this. We had a big campaign when we were releasing Battle for Confidence that forget the talk, show the docs. Let's show the documents. Show me if you have something to say and you want to prove that Frank Alexander was having an affair on his wife with somebody else. You better show the documents to prove that to me, because I don't believe it otherwise. Okay? And I think it's interesting that these people that are the wildest conspiracy theorists and the ones that are saying the most outrageous stuff aren't producing any documents to show for any of it.
Because they don't have any.
Forget the talk, show the docs. I mean, we're promoting that pretty heavily, but I think that stands. You know, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's show the documentation to prove it.
Goddamn
okay?
right.
That's when you get my respect, and I say that to take notice.
Goddamn right. Okay, my brother, I'm going to talk to you later on tonight, family.
Be good.
You too now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was RJ Bun, and he gave it to you the real as he can give it to you, people. Hi, real. What's up with you? How you doing, Boosie? How you doing? Everybody, all I can say is this, y'all. Much love to each and every last one of y'all. If you new and you just coming on and you like some shit you saw and you heard, just hit that subscribe button. Hit the subscribe button, because we finna drop more jewels. Stay tuned, because myself, J Mix, and RJ Bun, we working on putting the Truth Squad together, people. And that's going to be a YouTube channel right there. Possibly can lead us to a podcast show together. You know, we thinking big shit here. We not thinking that little shit. We thinking up here type shit. You feel me? Myself, J Mix, RJ Bun, the Truth Squad. Come on now. Could you imagine the merchandise for that shit? The merchandise, the hats that will come from the Truth Squad, the t-shirts, it's going down. Call it Tupac Jewels. The Truth Squad, we not just going to talk about Tupac. We're going to talk about a whole lot of other shit, you feel me? This is what we going to do, you know what I'm saying? The Truth Squad. Not the Truth Squad, the Truth. The Truth Squad. So yeah, we gonna collaborate in a major way, y'all. There you go. The Truth Squad is in the motherfucking building. So I got a break, y'all. It was fun kicking it with y'all and showing y'all this real shit. Hey, I gave y'all 2 live interviews in one day. I gave y'all the Gunzo on the phone, and then I give you RJ Bun. This is lovely, people. This is lovely. Like I said, the best is yet to come. The best is yet to come. It ain't over. It ain't over. You looking good, 313. Peace and light. Always peace and light. Thank you, Rosie Bailey. Thank you, baby. I think Rosie liked me, y'all. Rosie liked me. But, hey, if you ain't subscribed to me over on, friended me on Facebook, y'all. Friend me. Terrell Foster. Terrell Foster. Foster. Do that. Come on, Boosie, baby. You know you might. Come on, girl. You know I love you, too. Come on. Mwah. There you go. Don't be jealous. You my number one. Hey, I'm glad y'all riding, because I'm riding with y'all. So hit me up, everybody. Like I said, go to Facebook. Add me as your friend. And everything is cool over there. We do what we do. What's up, Latrina Corner? Hey, Connor, how you doing over there? T-Baby314. That's my girl. You know what? Let me say this about T-Baby, y'all. That's my baby. She go to bat for me. She be on the haters, y'all. I like her. But let me tell y'all this. Don't, the haters, y'all don't address them. Don't do that. I'm not going to tell y'all to attack my haters and attack my trolls. Only a pussy would do that. I'm a real man. If I gotta, I will attack them. You know what I'm saying? I will do that. I'm not going to ask y'all to do that. But if y'all do that, that's cool. That's fine. Y'all can do that. But I normally do that because I will back my shit up. It is what it is. We can see each other on the street or whatever, and I'm going to back that up. I don't give a fuck. So peace and love, family. I love all y'all. Y'all is that deal with me, you know what I'm saying? Peace.